Welcome to Physiomedics. In this video, we will discuss foods to avoid with diverticulitis. Diverticulitis is a digestive disorder that affects the large intestine. It occurs when small pockets in the lining of colon become inflamed or infected. Foods commonly linked with this condition tend to get stuck in these pouches. Therefore, it's important to avoid such foods for those who are suffering from diverticulitis. Additionally, staying hydrated and taking antibiotics can help alleviate symptoms. Though diverticulitis can be uncomfortable and cause some disruption to everyday life, there are plenty of steps you can take to manage your condition so that you don't have to worry about flare-ups. Foods to avoid if you have diverticulitis. Foods that are especially hard to digest can cause further inflammation, so it is important to be mindful of food choices if you have been diagnosed with diverticulitis. Here are some foods you should avoid if you have diverticulitis. Number 1. High FODMAP foods. Foods high in fermentable carbohydrates, otherwise known as FODMAPs, are often foods to avoid if you have diverticulitis. Foods that can be problematic for those who suffer from diverticulitis include garlic, onions, and legumes, as well as wheat-based products. Foods high in fructose such as apples and pears are also commonly found on lists of to avoid food groups. Number 2. Red and processed meat. Foods to avoid if you have been diverticulitis include red and processed meat. Diverticulitis is a condition where small pockets of the intestine become inflamed, so it is important to pay attention to which foods you can eat and which ones to avoid. Red and processed meats should be avoided as they contain high amounts of fat, salt, and preservatives, all of which can make symptoms of diverticulitis worse. Number 3. Foods high in sugar and fat. Foods high in sugar and fat are generally unhealthy, but if you have diverticulitis, it's especially important to avoid them. Foods such as fried foods, fatty meats, full-fat dairy products, pastries, and sugary sodas can all lead to inflammation in the colon, which can make the symptoms of diverticulitis even worse. To stay healthy and help manage diverticulitis, it is a good idea to limit foods like these from your diet as much as possible. Number 4. Hard to chew foods. Foods that are hard to chew, such as nuts, seeds, kernels, and popcorn, can be bad news if you have diverticulitis. A sharp piece of these foods can lodge itself in the diverticular sac, which can cause inflammation and infection. Cutting food into small pieces may not eliminate the risk entirely, so it is best to avoid these items when possible. Number 5. Popcorn and corn on the cob. A serious condition like diverticulitis requires some significant dietary modification. Foods that can complicate or worsen the condition should be avoided, such as popcorn and corn on the cob. Popcorn is a frequent culprit as its kernels can become lodged in pockets of the intestine, impeding digestion. Corn on the cob can also increase irritation due to their size and texture. When eating other forms of corn, such as canned or frozen corn, it's important to cut it into smaller pieces before consuming. Eating these foods in moderation is sometimes considered but should only be done so under the advisement of a doctor. Number 6. Bread. Foods that are high in insoluble fiber, including popcorn, corn, nuts, whole wheat bread, and seeds, are generally considered to be ones to avoid if you have diverticulitis. Whole wheat bread is a bad choice for many reasons. It has a high fat content than wheat bread, meaning that it can be inflammatory for the stomach and intestine and can lead to an increased risk of flare-ups. Additionally, whole wheat bread has more complex carbohydrates than white bread or other simple forms of carbohydrates, which can slow down digestion and make diverticulitis symptoms worse. Therefore, if you suffer from diverticulitis, it is best to steer clear of whole wheat bread and choose simpler sources of carbohydrates instead. Number 7. Ice cream. Ice cream can be a comforting treat on a hot summer day, but those living with diverticulitis should avoid it. Foods that are high in fat and contain seeds or nuts, like ice cream, can cause abdominal discomfort for people with existing diverticula, small pouches that form naturally in the wall of the large intestine. Foods to avoid that contain seeds and nuts include many styles of ice cream: milkshakes, granola bars, cereals, cakes, and anything with chocolate chips or mix-ins. Though not necessarily comprised of seeds or nuts themselves, foods like peanut butter and avocado should also be avoided as they can aggravate diverticulitis symptoms. Instead of eating ice cream, those living with diverticulitis can enjoy other treats like yogurt or homemade smoothies made with ingredients their bodies won't find irritating.